Welcome to Connections in Flight. I'm Erika Paramore, a licensed psychotherapist navigating meaningful conversations with
Dr. Sarah Mizuguchi. I'm a physician. I'm a radiologist, which will have zero input into this show.
but lots of input personally, right?
I have other input.
And this is not actually a real therapy session, although listeners are welcome to feel like they're witnesses to our conversations that will provide psychological insights and strategies that we hope will be useful for anybody. So Sarah, we're about to board the plane.
Jesus.
Where are we going and what is in your bag?
Well, the first thing that I thought of, and I have no idea why, I want to go to Tahiti.
Oh,
I no idea why that popped in my brain.
that's perfect.
Maybe because it's, you think about those glamorous vacations, somewhere with a beach and an island and drinking a coconut.
Sunshine.
That's where I would be going if I just went to the airport.
So what's in your bag?
Oh my gosh. I'm kind of traveling light today. What's in your bag? And where would you go?
Where would I go?
Impromptu.
I would go skiing.
Oh God. That's dead to me.
Do you know that I have heard more epiphanies discovered on a chairlift? Clients have realized their sexuality, they have realized who they need to divorce, what job they need, their next flight, all on a chairlift. The color, I swear to God.
I'm shook.
Ever since I've learned that and put that together, the chairlift is why I want to go skiing.
Do you ski?
Yeah.
I ski very poorly, but you know what? I want to go skiing now.
But think about it. It's all the sensations, right? The color of the sky, the smell of the pine, the snow, the cold, the warm, the fresh air, the flight of the speed of it's exhilarating.
And when I say skiing's dead to me, I just mean, listen, I want to circle back. So
don't crush my soul, Sarah.
Skiing is dead to me in that I know I'm never going to be as good as the people that I ski with because they're all like flipping double black diamond bowls. I've never even seen a bowl because I'm on the green.
Do they connect to their soul on the chairlift? That's the one you can be.
That's the one I want to be. And I love the whole environment, the snow, the mountains, the opera.
And it's okay. You don't have to love it all.
I do. I want to go on ski trips. I just don't want to particularly ski.
Just ride the chairlift. Round and around. It's your own flight.
I love that chairlift thing. I want to talk to somebody who's had this experience.
Those are the sessions I feel like I should pay my clients.
No, it's beautiful.
It's pretty amazing.
I love it. I can't wait to navigate today.
Me too, Sarah. I'm really excited about this one. I think it's going to be one that we can all relate to and talk about probably for 10 episodes if we have the time. Well, I'm going to just kind of give you a little teaser to before I announce the word of the episode. Okay. I have to tell you a little story that happened to me literally 2 days ago. You see if you can kind of put this together if you've ever had an experience like this. But I was at the gym. I was just stretching, and in the corner of the room, there was probably two 35-year-olds, I would say, talking. I don't even know if they knew each other. And I heard this one say to the other, "It's a lot, right?" And I sort of just paused and I thought, And they kind of went on in their conversation. Could have been about the workout they just did. So I leave the gym, I'm heading to the grocery store, get in the grocery store, and first people I see are, I would say, mid-50s, maybe early 60s, two women. They didn't say it's a lot, right? But they said, it's a lot. And it just made me pause and think, I don't know what they're talking about. Could be elderly parents, it could be elderly or sick children, could be their grocery store lists, 35-year-old, maybe a 65-year-old, saying the exact same thing the same day within an hour between each other. But it made me think, gosh, here is a connection in flight.
It's a sign that we need to talk about this.
And what's this, Sarah? What do you think the word of the day is?
Burnout.
It's a lot, right?
It's a lot.
So I've got a few questions to ask you. I mean, what comes up for you when you think about that word? At this point in your life flight, what comes up?
For me, when we talked about this word, the initial reaction that I have to this word is that I just have lost all passion for something. I've lost all maybe motivation to do something, or I feel like it becomes a chore where maybe it used to be pleasurable or joyous.
Yeah.
And I think about it as something I have to keep doing. It's not really something I can just stop. Or if I did just stop, there could be major ramifications.
And what personally comes up for you when you think, whether that's in the past or something even currently? Is there an example of that for you?
For sure. I mean, I think the worst burnout I've ever experienced in my life was, I mean, I don't think it's a cliche by any means. I think it just happens to a lot of people, was at my job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think most people associate the word burnout with work, because originally a lot of this research started in the 60s, where the work culture, wages were, productivity and wages were sort of equal. And as in the early 70s, I believe it's something about, the productivity increased, but the wages didn't. And that's where most people saw a lot of burnout and complained in jobs and service jobs particularly. But I think now it's really evolved, especially after the pandemic. I think it's taken on a whole different meaning. So say more about kind of what you associate it with your job.
I love my job. I love being a doctor. I love the type of medicine that I'm fortunate enough to practice. I had never dreaded going to work, ever. Not even on a Monday morning. I almost, to be honest, look forward to it.
And what age are you talking about? Is that more like early in your career?
Girl, this was like last year.
Oh, okay.
This has happened very recently.
Okay.
I think I'd had a few small glimpses of burnout before, maybe in my 30s, but gosh, I would need a lot of talk to figure out why I didn't spiral like I did this time. I do think maybe the pandemic had something to do with it. I think for the first time during the pandemic, slowing down, realizing maybe I was going a little too full steam with my job. And then for whatever reason, after COVID, when my job picked back up and we were super busy, I found myself dreading going to work.
Now, does this have anything to do, you think, with being in the medical field? Because I know that was a big industry with COVID that was very affected by.
I honestly don't think so.
Okay.
Because I'm a radiologist, so I do see patients. I'm a breast radiologist, but I was not on the front lines by any stretch of the imagination, but my job had slowed down. We had less patients, of course.
Sure.
So when everything started picking back up, I really, for the first time, was like, I don't want to do this like I did. I don't think that I can do this like I did.
So you weren't really seeing something specific in terms of a stress or a situation. It was more this internal experience?
An internal feeling where, like I said, I mean, I've worked full time as a doctor since I graduated from med school. So going to work it's not something that's foreign to me. I know what it's like to get up and have to go to work. Normally, when I walk into work, this sounds kind of insane, but like I play a song. I feel like I'm strutting. I honestly can't wait to get there most of the time. Mm-hmm. And I found myself not enjoying it at all. And I realized something was wrong. And my former colleagues will also probably remember this shift. I started wearing sweatpants to work. I'm not kidding
Instead
you.
of what?
Like regular clothes or scrubs. I literally started wearing sweatpants.
It's like the sweatpant effect. When people were in sweatpants, it was a sign of burnout for you?
No, and I did like hike them up. Like it was the 80s. I put like cute Nikes with them. And I had my white coat over it and all of that. But I was like, there's something's going on. I'm not saying I wasn't trying, because that is a lie. I always give my best at work. But I didn't have any desire to do more than what I needed to do.
That's
which
a
is
very big sign.
Not like me at all. I wasn't in any kind of spiral of getting fired or anything. I didn't feel the like pep.
Yeah, you're going through the motions.
And I started being there as little as possible. I wasn't wearing makeup. Had kind of maybe I was a little depressed. I don't know. But somehow it all manifested in, I just don't feel the way that I felt about this.
The pep was gone.
The pep in my step was completely gone.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because this is an important differentiation in recognizing what is an environmental kind of burnout versus like an internal burnout. When you would leave work, what did you notice when you were friends, or when you were there other things that you could enjoy doing in your personal life where the pep was still there, or did you see this sort of across all realms of your life?
I do think it started out maybe across a couple of realms, and maybe that was right after the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But then I got over that, to be honest, and it felt like it manifested itself completely at work, where I was fine at home, I was fine doing other things, but I did not feel the same level of excitement or enthusiasm for my job.
And yet you can't put your finger on what it was at work that was creating that. Is it an accumulation of a lot of different things?
So I can, only in hindsight, to be honest. I knew something was going on with me, with my career. Maybe I'm burned out. I mean, this is also a pretty popular word that, people talk about. So I think I'm having career burnout. So I asked myself all kinds of questions. Do I even want to do this anymore? Or should I do it differently? So I really searched for what I thought was going on. And I do have to say, I think I self-diagnosed myself.
I'm impressed,
with what it was. One of the really helpful things that I watched was a TED Talk. I mean, I watched many, but one of the ones I remember is a TED Talk. His name is Dan Pink, and it's called The Puzzle of Motivation. It's a very short TED Talk, but he really helped me identify what my problem was, and you actually touched on it, talking about what had happened in the 70s, and my entire job had only become based on extrinsic motivations. There was really nowhere else for me to go. I'd kind of peaked, I guess. I probably wasn't going to make any more money.
And just to reiterate, you're in your mid-40s. Yeah. You're not a newbie.
No.
But you have a lot ahead of you.
Right. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I really going to probably work till I die. I mean, it's kind of who I am.
Loved it that much.
I loved it. But I felt like there was nothing, I had lost my internal motivation for this job somehow.
Well, it sounds like it wasn't just the motivation part. The motivation was linked to like a lack of meaningfulness for you.
I had for some reason, and it does kind of pain me to say this because I am a physician, but something had died with the passion for not the quality of work, but the quality of my fire.
Did you feel alone in that? Were there other colleagues or people that you knew, even if you all weren't in the same job position, that you could talk to about any of that? I mean, even if they couldn't help you specifically with it, just to feel like you weren't alone in that?
So I certainly have good friends that are colleagues. Part of my discussions with them were, I do think, a little more one-sided by me because I am sometimes honest to a fault about it. I made it very clear that I couldn't stay like this. I mean, I have had other friends, not just the friends that I work with, but many friends that are just like, it'll pass or you'll get over it. And I thought to myself, fuck that.
Right. Where do I fly next? I got to flee.
This isn't going to pass. What's going to happen is I'm going to wake up and I'm going to be like 70 and I'm going to be like, why did I stay here? Why did I not do something about this?
And when you say stay here, was it that specific location of your work or was it the job itself?
I think it was a combination of the specific location of the job, what that type of work was, and that I didn't feel like I had any forward momentum. I felt like I was doing a great job. Everything's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the job. I just felt like I had lost any kind of forward growth professionally and, to be honest, equally personally.
Right. Well, and I'm really appreciative of how you're describing that process, because the thing about burnout that a lot of people don't understand, and I have to say, just even in my job as a therapist over these last 2 years, that's probably the most common prevalent theme I'm hearing. But clients aren't always coming in saying, I have burnout, but they're describing those factors in different ways at different stages. And so it's very pervasive. It's almost like addiction. People don't wake up with it, but it's a process that gets more intense unless it gets addressed. And you described there's 3 stages or 3 phases I can go into in depth, but you're describing them perfectly.
Oh.
In trauma therapy, we learn about stress cycles. So burnout is really about not just the stressor in your life, like it's not just your job. It's what's happening in your own internal stress response cycle. If you look at the 3 stages of the stress cycle, it's a physical or mental kind of response to a stressor. There's alarm, resistance, and then exhaustion. So the alarm stage could have been COVID for you. It may not have been something that happened at work, but it was a potential threat or an actual threat that was signaling your amygdala to send signs to your hypothalamus that go straight to your nervous system of you're in danger, right? We all were. And some days were different than others. And it wasn't just danger of the disease or the virus. It was, how do I protect my kids? Will I go back to work? Do I wear a mask? Do I not? It's all the decision-making was something that was so unprecedented.
I really feel like my amygdala was telling me not so much about COVID or my kids. It was telling me I was going to die and my soul was going to die. Like something was wrong, fundamentally wrong with my outlook on working.
Well, so what's happening is like the work thing that used to be safe was no longer safe for you for whatever the reason was. Maybe it was your age. Maybe it was that you had a break and you went back thinking, oh, life will return to normal. But we all went through trauma with the pandemic. So what happens in your system is what we're talking about. It may not be conscious, but we want your amygdala to send a threat signal when you're in a pandemic. Or you're going to...
My amygdala is firing on all cylinders.
So here's what happens. So once the signal goes to your nervous system, adrenaline is released. And that's telling you to run from the lion, right? We want that to happen if there's a lion. And there was. I mean, COVID was a lion. Let's just say that. And so we're going to all have a different response to that. We have either the fight, the flight, the freeze, or the fawn. The freeze response is not weakness. And I'm wondering, as we're kind of talking about this, you typically react more in a fight response. Yeah. Go for it, right? You fly high to the sun.
Yeah. I'm about to punch somebody.
Yeah, you go. You make it happen. But when you said I wanted to flee, I needed to get out of there, fly away. That was a flight response because being that you didn't have any fight left. You were depleted. Like adrenals were tapped out. And it may not have been because you were at work or working long hours, but it's all of those the decision fatigue, the coordination fatigue, all the technology changes, the kids, those constant stressors are going to trigger our alarm systems. Even we may not have any idea it's happening, which is why it's hard to catch at that stage. So the second stage of resistance, that's what you were just describing of, I just know something's wrong.
Right.
I can't keep going forward. So even if the danger is past, even if you're coming out of COVID, you're back to work, you're making money again, kids are in school, your parasympathetic nervous system is putting on the brakes. It's telling you, we're not so sure we're safe yet. Like, let's just take a break. But that's where you're like, all right, where's the adrenaline? It's gone.
All right.
Right? So that you'll see that in signs of poor concentration, irritability, things that should feel small, feel huge.
Oh, I had all that.
Frustration. There's no tolerance for anything. Right. It's like a why bother?
And what phase is this? This
is the second phase of resistance, where the adrenaline's been, sending you to fight, and now you're putting the brakes on, which is sort of a freeze response or a shutdown. But what I love about what you've said, you recognized it. You ask questions. You turn towards TED Talks. You talk to friends. You were recognizing something wasn't right. You didn't know what it was, but that's important to at least be aware of it.
Right.
Because if you don't, it turns into the third phase, which is exhaustion. And that's where the more chronic stress symptoms show up, like heart disease and depression. I mean, depression is a disorder. Burnout is a condition. If we don't complete the stress cycle completely, that's where a lot of people, their life really does get impaired by this exhaustion phase.
Where does the cycle end? I mean, if you're exhausted, how do you even complete the
Great question.
cycle? Like, where do you go next?
To complete the stress cycle, and again, that's an internal thing that we all have to understand. I mean, even animals have a stress cycle, right? So like I have this scaredy cat dog who stands at the top of the stairs, and every time he comes down the stairs, because he's slipped before.
And he's huge.
He's huge.
He's humongous.
But he's a nervous dog, okay? So he comes down the stairs and he shakes to his core like he's just gotten out of the pool or something. And I see it and I giggle every time because that is him completing his stress cycle. It's like shake it off, right? I'm sure Taylor Swift's song has something to do with the stress cycle in her life.
How do you know when you're coming out of the stress cycle?
So here are some things you can do. So great question. To come out, here's what you can do to get out of it. And some you have to do all of these, but here are some options. And if you have these already incorporated into your life, just getting to that point, even though you're like, why bother? Knowing you can do these things to complete it, you'll be amazed at how powerful they are.
So I feel like I'm actually out of that stress cycle that I'm talking about.
Before I tell you the stages, tell me what you did.
So I felt myself in the stress cycle. I felt my soul dying.
Oh.
I would literally just...
Yeah.
I would sit at work on a keyboard and see like an ether, and I'd be like, what is that? It's like, it's my soul leaving my body. I mean, I don't know what phase that is. It might be a new one. I tell myself I'm going to do something dramatic, and I just quit my job. Now, I say that not lightly because I know that is something that I did have a luxury to do. But I said to myself, it's either this, I either quit my job or I'm going to stay here. Who knows how much longer? I need to make a change now. I had planned to quit my job on March 1st. Did you see that movie, Don't Look Up? And she puts the end of the world timer on her phone.
I've never even heard of this.
Oh my God. It's so good. So the world is, oh my God, spoiler alert. The world is ending, and when her phone starts going off and an alarm, it's going to be the end of the world. So I did that on my phone for March 1st. I was supposed to quit my job on March 1st, 2022.
Wow.
When my alarm went off on March 1st, I said, I'm not quite ready. I don't know what this feeling is, but there is something internally that kind of tells you whether it's a go or not. And I just thought, I'm going to just wait a little bit more. Now, that could have probably turned into forever, and I never did it.
But you gave yourself the choice, and that option to get out of the danger probably quieted the amygdala, so your adrenaline kind of reset a little bit.
I do think it happened for a reason, because after March 1st, I was like, okay, and maybe I did do a little self-talk, like, this is okay. I'll be okay. I'll get through this. And then maybe about 8 weeks later, I actually quit my job on April 29th. I know exactly when I did it. I just woke up one morning. I sent an email. As soon as I sent that email, I dramatically turned into a different person.
Interesting.
So
you got off that plane.
I got off. And again, I know quitting your job with no new job in sight, it's 0 new jobs lined up, 0. But I told myself this is the right thing to do. I'm smart. I'm motivated. I'm not lazy. I'm not looking to not work. I'm just looking to not work here or like this, however you see that situation. So as soon as I quit my job, I found like a new purpose.
That's the key. Wait, hold that thought. That word, purpose, is your cure.
I have got to have something.
So by not continuing to go through the motions, tell me more about what that meant to you. Because if I said go find your purpose to anybody with burnout, they can't do that. So it was the quitting where you felt like you took charge of what you needed to do to be safe enough to get out of the thing that was creating danger for you. Right. And then that freedom of, okay, I'm safe, helped you connect to purpose. Say more about what that purpose felt like for you or meant to you? Because it's a feeling and a belief, right? It's not just one.
Again, the TED Talk, actually, he also talks a lot about these motivations, what motivates you. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't like the money, because I do like to make money with my job, but I needed something else.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't motivating me to do any better. And I listened to these talks, and it's like, you need purpose and I need autonomy. So I started thinking, what is my purpose? My purpose, to be honest, is the same thing. My purpose, I feel like this has always been my purpose. Like, I want to work hard and I want to help people. That's what I want to do. And I'm not scared of those things. And then I did have a little self-pep talks, like, I went to medical school. I'm capable. Like, there are other things out there. And something else that I read about that was pretty life-changing is this notion of confirmation bias, where when I was in the phase that I wanted to quit my job, or I knew I probably needed to quit my job, I kept asking myself, okay, well, what am I going to do? So I kept basically coming up with jobs that were just like the job I already had. Like, I was basically looking for a lateral move. Again, there was nothing propelling me forward. So just because I wanted to quit one job, I was going to take a job that literally was like same contract, different name.
Right.
Why would I do that? So after I quit my job, and just pretty dramatic, like I said, I just woke up and did it. I thought to myself, I'm going to think outside the box. I'm going to look for work I haven't ever done before.
Wow.
It's going to be really scary.
In the medical field?
In the medical,
okay.
And doing what I do now.
So there's still purpose to help others with the education and the experience you had.
Totally. But I'm not going to sign on for another job like I just had that I want to get away from. And I want to challenge myself to see if I can do it. I mean, again, this is who I am. I like that feeling of being scared. I mean, like, the first day, I was like, yeah, crush this shit. And then by the second day, I was like, oh my God, this is all up to me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be unemployed in 90 days. People know I'm fiery. And then I felt a whole new passion and purpose of like, oh my God, I can do whatever I want.
Well, it's interesting. The age group that tends to report the highest levels of burnout are in their 30s.
Really?
And I think that what we see is, if you think about your 20s, you're kind of figuring out what you're interested in. You've got that fire. You've got that curiosity about life. It's also stressful in a different way. Your 30s are where it's starting to come together, but there's a lot of ego in that. Like, who am I? What am I? I got to get it done. And there's a drive. There's a force. But that's when a lot of people have children. That's when they are moving for different careers because they're moving up, or they're still trying to prove themselves to their bosses or promotions, or it's a lot of what you're describing.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing, that's you're using the same language about the shift between ego and soul that we see happening more in like the 50s age group, where no longer is ego's boring now. I've proven myself. Like, there's a boredom factor where I'm just going through the motions now. And now I feel like I need more of my soul.
Well,
and that is exactly, when you said my soul was leaving.
My soul.
Like, that is exactly what was happening.
I mean, I need a reason to get up. I have been told maybe it's a God complex. Maybe we can circle back around to that. But I need to feel like I'm doing something. And
I think every human being, it comes down to that. And sometimes we don't, it's a very complicated navigation of what that is.
And the other thing that's complicated about it is I was doing something at my job.
Yeah.
I actually was doing,
You were flying.
like, it was smooth sailing. I honestly could have taken that same flight and retired and walked out of there on a smooth flight.
But it was time to land.
Like, I wanted the turbulence. Like, I needed something.
You were bored.
Well, and this is why it takes all types to make the world go around. And believe me, other people are doing this and they're very happy and satisfied and their souls are
Absolutely
filled. So I don't want to say
it's not a comparison thing.
I don't want to say this, I'm speaking for other people. I'm truly only speaking for myself. That smooth flight with no feeling for me, just me, that I wasn't moving forward in my soul or whatever, my personal ethos, I had to like get off that flight.
Well, and I would say people describe that in their relationships. You know, the person they were with that they used to be best friends with or would have butterflies when they'd be around. It's that whole adage of, I mean, I love her, but I don't know if I'm in love with her anymore.
Right.
And do you stay or do you go? I mean, it's a question that every human being asks in some way, whether it's conscious or not, of something new is old again. Is something old new again? I mean, and I think COVID again gave us insights of like, wow, life is short and there's a lot of things we had time to reflect on, whether we got information about it or if we just felt it in our bodies. But I think that it's not about the topic or the stressor. It's what was happening internally for you. And boredom seems like a hard thing to be threatened by, but it's a good thing that you're bothered by that.
So I want to go back to the stress cycle. So the last phase was exhaustion. And I'm wondering if that's where I was between March 1st and April 29th, where I was just like, here I am. I don't even care anymore, blah, 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 blah. And then something though in me was like, I don't fucking think so.
It's
time to go on.
And you don't have to know.
Right. But let me ask you, so what I just said about my experience with it, if you have a client or a friend that's in maybe the later stages of the stress cycle, what do you tell someone? Like, what are some...
How to complete it, you mean?
To complete it.
Yeah, great question.
Because I'm kind of ready for my next stress cycle.
You're like, bring it. I don't want to get bored with this thing.
Getting pretty comfortable.
No, but it's actually pretty primal. I mean, I think the thing that's really cool about it involves much more of your body than your mind. And Emily Nagoski have a fabulous book called Burnout, and they get much more into depth about all of this. But that's a great reference for people if they want to learn more about this. And they share a lot of their own personal stories. They're twins, and they have a lot of research. They're the experts on this. But in terms of just the stress cycle in general, and I've learned a lot about this just through the trauma therapy that I do, is anything with physical bilateral stimulation. So walking, jogging, swimming, dancing if you think about prehistoric times, the drumming and the marching and the dancing and the stomping and all of that people were doing, and maybe they didn't know why they were doing it, but it helped. It's part of like literally getting it out of their body. It's like my dog shaking because something's wrong. He's like literally removing the stress from his body. And watch animals, horses do it. I mean, it's fascinating, right? We do it like when we're pregnant, we shiver, you know, it may be like after we almost got in a car accident, we have that near miss, we're kind of shaking. That's the stress leaving our body. If we don't let it do that, it's stuck in us, but we have to be deliberate. So if people say, well, just go exercise, you're like, I'm depleted. Put some music on, dance. You said you used to strut into work and that stopped.
Yes.
The walking with intention is a huge part.
George Jefferson.
But even as a prevention of getting burnout, knowing to do that in your life can help you really always, it doesn't have to be about work stress. It can be about any stress we absorb. There's a lot of research even about how the brain, the longevity of the brain when we walk with intention. They've seen studies about the word plumpy brain or whatever, but it's remarkable at how much younger a brain is in terms of aging just from walking. It's like 30 minutes a day. And it could be just an activity walking, like from your car. It doesn't have to be like an exercise.
And that 30-minute a day walking is across all medical literature.
Right.
I mean, heart disease, like you said, you know.
But you weren't strutting anymore.
No.
The second process or technique you can use to complete the stress cycle is creativity. This is a huge one, which that's where art therapy can be beautiful for trauma work, where people don't want to say what happened to them again. But if you just give them a box of markers or colors or clay or what they can create to kind of represent what's in their bodies, even with music, it's extremely powerful. especially if it's using their five senses.
I love the creativity, and I don't care what job you're in. When you're working full time, you are in this groove of that job. Yeah. Whether you stay at home with children or you're a rocket scientist, you're doing rocket scientist stuff all day.
Yeah.
And then what else are you doing?
Right.
So you can burn out from...
Well, and just using that one area of your brain over and over and over again.
Area.
It's like, where's the other part of our brain that's like kind of dormant now, right? So that's
completely
a huge part of
dormant.
It's taking the breaks from overusing one part of your brain to depletion. So the other one, you're going to love this one. This is so you. Laughter.
Oh, I love that.
So what happened during COVID when we were isolated? We weren't doing anything to even really laugh about. I mean, maybe in some ways, but I mean, it wasn't the same kind of laughter. And when I say laughter, it's not like, I mean, it is like belly laugh, like doubled over. You laugh just thinking about someone else laughing.
Right.
That's the best feeling in the world. But that is another way of almost shaking it out. And all the hormones or the chemicals that come with that release the stress.
I'm so fascinated by this thought of chemicals leaving our body.
Isn't it fascinating? It's the stress leaving our body, but then the chemicals level out because we're not threatened anymore. This is all nervous system stuff.
I've never heard this in my life. This is not something I've ever, to be honest, learned about.
Well, that's why we're talking. So we talked about laughter, I think, in the second step, and this might seem kind of surprising to bring this one up as a fourth, but crying is a hugely important. This is actually a rule in my office. People come in and they sit down, sometimes before they've even started talking, and they apologize. And they say, I didn't want to do this today. Just the crying part. And I get very stern with them. I hand them the Kleenex and I hand them the trash can. And I say, the one rule in my office is you cannot apologize for crying. It's like telling an athlete not to sweat when they work out. It is the physical release of stress leaving their body. And when we cry, sometimes we're so afraid to go into that place that we don't think we're ever going to get out of, or we think it's going to be so painful we can't handle it. But when we cry, we don't need the story for it to really process the stress cycle. We just need to notice the sensation of the crying.
I feel like sometimes the crying comes later, or I've like hoarded up all the tears, and then I cry when I think I'm not even stressed anymore. And it comes at like a really weird time, like a commercial.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember, I don't know that the younger people in their 30s will remember this movie, but do you remember Dolly Parton in Steel Magnolias?
Oh, God.
Her character
I've
was
spilled
Trudy.
many a tears over that movie.
The best quote, I actually had this as my senior quote in my yearbook. This is so embarrassing to say, of course.
Oh, my God. I love it. I love it. What is it?
It's laughter through tears is my favorite emotion.
You said that when you were 18.
Because it was so true. Think how hard you laugh when you're a senior in high school.
The stars were aligned.
But I mean, it is like the fact that laughter and crying are in the same 6 steps. Mm-hmm. It is that gut wrenching in your belly, like it's a shake off. It's an internal. So for you to say like it comes at weird times, that makes perfect sense. But to suppress it is like pushing the beach ball underwater. It's just going to keep showing back up. Mm-hmm. Let it come up. Let it float away.
Right.
It literally only, if you allow crying to happen and you're just noticing the warmth of the tears in your cheeks, or you're counting the tears, or the sensation in your gut, it won't last more than 2 minutes.
I don't do that. No, that's way too reasonable. I hoard them all up. I hoard like 1 million tears. And then like a Pamper commercial comes on and I just fucking bawl my eyes out for like an hour. I don't know what that means.
It's the release. It's why we listen to sad music when we're sad, or go see a sad movie. We don't want.
No, I'd never cry for like a minute. It's got to be like it just, I don't know.
But subconsciously, that means you're looking for the release of it. My whole point is like, it's how we take the stress out of our body. And it's in our, I don't know if every culture is this way, but it's fascinating to me. Men and women, even my kids, it's like they don't want to cry. And I think it's because it's painful. But if you release it, it's
cathartic.
It's how it processes.
I love to cry. Maybe I should cry more often.
Well, the other thing is if you cry in the shower or the car or wherever, you're not going to do that at work. If we hold it in, it could be. But if it's a place where it's not appropriate,
right. I know. I don't cry at work.
Let it out in these like places where you can, where it's safe, so that you feel. I don't want to say in control of it, but you feel like it is safe.
Right.
And then it won't be to the point where it just comes out like a Pampers commercial.
Oh, okay.
So the other thing, and this happens after we have a really hard cry. This is step number 5, these are not in any specific order. But
okay, that's helpful. That's actually really helpful.
But this actually happens a lot after we cry. Is that deep breath? That right. It's a slow exhale. So part of that is if you think about, there's different kinds of breath that could be energizing and upregulating. If we want like a calming, more soothing kind of breath, we want a 4-second inhale through our nose, maybe a 4-second hold, and then at least 6 seconds exhale slow and long through our mouth. That process sends all these different signals to our nervous system. We're okay. We're not running from danger. It's calming, and it helps us to sort of regroup.
I've never done the breath work. Where would be a good place to start for breath work?
I'm a terrible breather, and my husband loves Calm or Headspace meditation apps, but the talking really distracts me. So the app that I found was very useful is called Breathwork. I think you get like a 7-day free trial to just test it out, but then I think you have to get a subscription. But it's very simple to use, and it's very visual. You can actually type in the type of breathing you want if you want to be more energizing or more calming or for different health issues.
I'm going to look into that app. I mean, sometimes I feel kind of embarrassed saying the things I don't know for like mental health since I'm a doctor. But these aren't things that at least I learned in medical school, and I certainly didn't learn them in my residency. But the first time that breathing became something that I was really learning and people were teaching was during my Pilates training. And they went over so much of the breathing and even the physicality and the muscles involved. It's just completely fascinating.
Well, and I don't think, Sarah, even in mental health stuff, we didn't know this scientifically as much. People did breathing since the beginning of time, different kinds of breath work, but I think really seeing the effect on the vagus nerve,
right,
and the different signaling, I don't know that we knew that long ago, but I think that there's different types of breathing that can create different responses in our nervous system.
Oh, I'm sure.
So we don't want to energize if we're trying to go to bed.
Right.
We don't want to overcalm if we're getting ready to perform. So I think that's why I like this app. It was very simple. I didn't get too stuck in, am I doing this right? Because I could just follow it.
Well, that's exactly where I would go. Am I doing this right?
I think that
oh my God, I'm not breathing right.
Well, and the time when you know too much, it's makes it worse. But
they're breathing better than me. Damn it.
It's not about competition.
Yes, it is. Oh my God. Again, it's probably why I'm crying at the Pampers commercial.
But think about what you do after a big laugh or a big cry.
Yes.
It's like that.
Everything that you're saying is really resonating. And thinking back, I've done these things. I have not done the breath work. What was the app called?
It's called Breathwork. But I know that the real master.
God, I can remember that.
The master of this, this is my opinion. I have no idea. I'm sure there's a million other people who are masters at this. But James Nestor wrote a book called Breath. He learned from watching the deep divers, in Greece. Cool. I think he went in an internship or something. But he's amazing about how to explain all that. But
and the science behind it.
And the science behind it. But if you can't read the book, the app actually, and I don't think it's related to James Nestor, but it has recommended use button and the science behind it. So you can kind of see on the app.
And let me ask you, is it something you can just do quickly?
Yes. It's a 1 to 3 minute thing.
Okay.
And it helps you keep track of it. You can set a schedule to remind you. But for someone who, I'm speaking for myself, who is not good at that kind of thing, it was very easy to kind of learn. It was not intimidating.
Mm-hmm. I've never even looked into it. It's
well, try it and see what you think.
Okay, I will.
We'll talk about
I totally will.
Okay, so the sixth step to really completing the internal stress response cycle, again, not in order, but this one is, I love ending with this one. Mm-hmm. It's physical affection.
Oh.
And it doesn't mean romance, but it's a hug. It is so I think we talked about Amelia and Emily Nagoski's book, Burnout. This is their research about a 20-second hug that is secure. So it doesn't mean it's just a pat on the back, or that if I step away that you fall forward. It's we're holding our own center of gravity, and it's sort of heart to heart, nervous system to nervous system. It's almost like the way you feel just everything lets go. And if you think about that, when you have a newborn baby, where do we hold them? Right? It's a sense of you're safe in the world. And the oxytocin released in that. And I think COVID scared us from doing that. I mean, even with our loved ones, it was oh, what if someone has something? I just think that was a big part of where we hold the stress. And I mean, I hate to bring Bunker back into this, but I do that with him. I mean, I feel like it does help. It's a regulation tool.
I'm about to complete a stress cycle right now. I'm about to cry right now. This is all
I think you can.
Oh my God, if you hugged me right now, I would fall my eyes out.
Don't be sorry. No, you are not allowed to apologize for crying.
Oh my God, I went there. Oh my God.
Do you see?
Oh my God, I went there.
No, it was, yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Oh my God, I did it again.
It's safe. I'm proud of you. God. I think this is the first time I've seen you cry.
Well, it won't be the last.
Well, it's real. I'm proud of you. Yeah, no, honestly, this is how you build emotional resilience. You got to use the muscles.
Oh my God. I'm going to tell you what hit me, if I can, without crying.
Take your time. No.
I was thinking about the Pampers commercial, and then I was thinking about the physical affection. And then when you said about holding the baby, my kids popped in my mind, and I was thinking about the physical affection and how it gets less. As your kids get older. I know. I don't know why I'm so weepy right now. I almost said I'm sorry.
You've been on an airplane.
I did travel today. It always makes me really emotional.
No, but it's real.
Oh my God, I watched this episode. Yeah. Shit. Sorry. Ugh.
I tried to pick up my son. He's 11 the other day. We were laughing in the kitchen. He's like, ow, that hurts my back. And I started crying.
I don't know why. I just was
used
thinking
to
about
pick him up all the time and hold me.
I know.
It's just a moment.
I don't know. I just had a real moment thinking about I give less hugs. Okay. My God.
It helps release the stress response cycle in both people. It's not just for you. It's not just for them.
I did see something. It was a meme or something, but it was always be the last one to let go of the hug.
I remember my grandmother saying it to me when I was really young, that never just pat someone on the back with a hug. Hold them so they know that they feel it. It's not just a gesture.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Someone's getting hugged.
These are so basic, aren't they? But they're so real, and it's so easy to just send a text. And none of those, a text isn't in any of these 6 ones.
Right. Well, I could get creative with my texting.
Texting is not bad. But to really, what we're talking about is not just dealing with a stressor, which is the thing outside of you, but it's where the stress gets in our bodies. How do we complete the cycle of it so we don't carry it around in our tissues?
And I think this will come as no surprise given my type A, just the way I see things. But I'm really glad you said multiple times these don't have to be in order, because I was thinking about doing them in order. That's so lame.
No, it's not lame.
But
you're trying so hard to make it happen and learn from it.
And let me ask you something else. There can't be a time frame on this, right?
Oh my gosh. No.
I mean, it could take, depending what the stressor was, it could take, a day, or it could take years.
It could be planning a wedding. It could be a job. It's not about the stressor itself or the content. It's about how we process what's inside of ourselves.
But if you went through something incredibly awful and stressful, and I mean, this cycle could take you, years. Yes.
But the whole point of this is if we are aware of it, I mean, laughing, physical activity, we can integrate these things in our everyday lives so that we may be processing and kind of releasing the stress that whatever comes through our day, so that's sort of proactive. It's not because we've gone through something terrible that we have to do this. It's a way of ritual and lifestyle and intention so that whatever comes into us, we're processing.
I'm going to see if I can do all 6 after this podcast is over.
Which one do you think is going to be the most challenging for you?
Well, I would have to obviously I can cry. That's no problem. I love to laugh. My cooking sucks, but it is creative.
You are one of the most creative. Think about your outfits. I mean, you are creative in your closet every morning. I know you may not think of it that way.
I love physical activity, obviously. I think, to be honest, oh God, I think honestly the hardest one for me right now is physical affection, followed closely by breathing because I've never done it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, being completely honest, that physical affection, that one really put me in a whole new stress cycle.
Is that what about the physical affection seems hardest for you? Like, what about that seems hard?
Oh God, new episode maybe.
Okay.
Well, I think this takeaway is pretty amazing, and I mean, you're the psychologist, but the takeaway has to be how to encourage completing the stress cycle.
And I do think for most people, I'm not speaking for you at all, but the physical affection is a challenge because there is a fear of rejection. If I put myself out there to connect, it's even subconsciously,
right?
Which is why it's so powerful, because it does make us feel secure in the world because there's someone else it's a connection with,
right?
Which is what this whole podcast is about.
God, this one went, feeling it. Sorry, I cried. I apologized again, but sorry.
Why are you sorry?
Okay. I take it back. Sorry, not sorry. I cried.
You're doing A+ extra credit, teacher's pet example of how
I got an A in therapy today.
You did. No, I'm seriously, but it's I think that's your body's own resistance to being uncomfortable.
Yeah, I'm super uncomfortable right now.
Yeah, but it's real.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that you're showing what it feels like, even though you know it's a great strategy, it still is uncomfortable, and practicing it.
Well, let me ask you about the takeaway for today as I see it, as I've learned it. How about that? So these 6 things, I've written them down: physical activity, laughter, creativity, crying, breathing, and physical affection. All of these things are good for us. They help us complete stress cycles in our lives.
Internally.
And they don't have to be done in any order, and there's no time frame. True.
Right. But we want to practice them as sort of parts of our life so that we don't have to just like pull them up when there's something that happens to us, because sometimes the stresses are everyday small stresses, especially in relationships that aren't always so obvious as a crisis.
Well, I think that's helpful to hear too. Like, we've talked about this before, about like trying to acknowledge these things before they bubble over, like trying to make these part of my life before everything just comes to a head. Would that be fair?
Well, if you go to the gym on a regular schedule, you're building muscles so you can rely on them if you accidentally trip.
Now that right? I can totally get behind.
This is an emotional gym.
Oh, God, this is like reps. Harder than the real gym.
It is. But it's beneficial because we want to build those, I call them muscles, but if they're emotional muscles, we can rely on them for whatever's next.
Let's call them that. I like that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Erika, thank you for today.
Thank you, Sarah. I mean, this is what it is. It's real.
It's real. All right. I'll catch you later.
Okay. Thanks so much for listening to us today on Connections in Flight. Would love to hear back from you. Please feel free to email us, leave feedback or comments.
We'll be back next week with a new word. If you want to discover more about us, please find us in our socials, and all the links are in the show notes. Okay, cut into burnout. I'm sorry. I lost my shit. I just got off my airplane.
Sorry. Please be advised that the information discussed on this podcast is not professional therapy. If you are triggered or activated, please don't be afraid to seek professional help.
Ample. Here.
Is this thing on?
Yeah, that's on. Don't touch that.